Hey, welcome to Tabletop Skirmish Games. I'm Lee, and in this video I'll show you how I painted BJORN the Fellhanded from the Space Wolves. Here he is, BJORN the Fellhanded, and in this video I'll show you how I painted him using some quick and easy techniques to a tabletop ready standard. And you can use these same techniques to paint all three of the different dreadnoughts that you can build from the kit. And that includes the Wolfen Dreadnought, BJORN the Fellhanded, and also Murderfang. All the paints used in this video are listed in the description below, and I'll also put some links where you can save 20% off the retail price. Right, let's get started, and here's BJORN the Fellhanded, all primed and ready to go, and I use the Citadel Mechanica Standard Grey spray to get him ready, and the arm isn't completely glued on, so that can come on and off, and I magnetised it so that I can use all 5 of the different weapons with him when I play. And I'll show you how I painted those in this video too. So the first paint I used was the shade Agrax Earthshade, and I went over the whole model and all the weapons with one nice even coat of Agrax Earthshade. And now I'm not swamping it with this, I'm putting an even coat using a fairly big brush so that it doesn't build up into big patches, but the idea here is to just start, end your brush strokes where you want most of the paint to build up on the model, but then just move it around by pushing and pulling it. If you think you've got too much in one area, just soak it back up on the brush and then move it to somewhere else. But this has got so much texture on there, it's really easy to like wipe the paint off the brush almost and get it all into those crevices. And this is going to be the first stage, so go all over the model, really work it in there. And then once that's completely dried, we can move on to the next stage, which is to take some layer Russ grey paint. And here I'm going to use this brush. It's a makeup brush, very vegan makeup brush, soft bristles, and this is a really great brush for dry brushing. But here we're going to do more of an overbrush. So I put some on the brush and then I work a little bit off on the paper towel, and then I just go all over the model in these rough strokes. So I'm trying to go mostly in downward strokes, and that's going to allow some of that grey and Agrax Earthshade to come through as almost like a darker region of the model. So just go all over it, working that in. And I did this twice, so I did 2 coats. So go all over the model once, let it dry completely. It doesn't take long to dry because we're not really putting lots of paint on here with this overbrush technique. And then once it's dried, I did a second coat, and then this is the result we end up with. On that fur on the left shoulder, I did avoid that because I didn't have to go over it to catch any other areas. So that's going to help when we do the brown on it later on. And I've also done the same thing on all the weapons here, and you can see they're magnetised so they can go on and off once they're all painted up. So I did that with all the weapons. Again, 2 coats, and that's ready to go on to the next stage where we take some base Wraithbone paint. And now I'm just picking out all the little areas where there's like skulls and bones, and there's quite a lot of bits and pieces all over these dreadnoughts. So just take your time, really go over the model, pick out all those bits, and then just give them 1 coat. And I'm only going to do 1 coat of this Wraithbone, that just works fine. And so yeah, going over all these little rune stones as well, all the little fangs that are dotted about. And then once that's dried, I moved on to the base Leadbelcher, and now I'm going to pick out all the areas of metal that I want to be this like silvery colour. So just in here around the arm, that's going to get a coat, and then just like when we did all the bones, just going through and picking out all the different elements. So these little bits here, he's got some little like sensors on the front, so that's going to get 1 coat. And again, I'm only doing 1 coat of Leadbelcher, so that's going to be plenty. And then all over the different areas of the flamer that he's got under this claw here, and anywhere where there's any like little cables or pipes, I'm going to give those a coat as well. And I don't wet this paint down, this is just straight out of the pot. If you want a smoother effect, you could add a little bit of water, then do 2 coats, but I'm just going for a tabletop ready standard here. I want this to be quite quick, and so I just go with 1 coat, and I find that that's fine and just works great. Then I moved on to the contrast Gore Grunta fur. This is the colour I'm using right across my Space Wolves army for any of the furs that they wear. And so I'm just going to go all over this fox fur at the, or not fox, it's a wolf fur at the front, and give it 1 nice even coat. I've got a larger brush so it can hold more paint, allow me to cover more of the surface area, but I'm not flooding it with paint, that's really important. Next I took some layer Lothern blue. It's a great colour, this paint, and then this is going to just go over the area around the base of the foot there that is going to be the rocks and the skulls, and then this is all going to tie into the bases that you'll see later on. Then I took some Retributor armour base paint and picked out all the gold areas, and here I've just gone all over this. I'm not trying to pick out the raised bit, I'm just doing the whole thick band that goes all around the front, and so working it in, using my brush and just dotting it in those little spaces to make sure it gets a nice coat. And then on this part I'm just trying to get the relief, so I'm not trying to get it right down to the bottom of this panel, so I'm just using quite an old scruffy brush actually, but it's got a nice flat set of bristles, and that allows me just to brush it along the top and catch those edges of the relief. Again, there's going to be lots of areas here to pick out, so just take your time, go around, make sure you try and get everything done in this one pass with this colour. Pick out these little gold jewels, all the different parts of the shield. I decided to go all gold, it was just easier to paint it that way and then fill in the gaps later on. Then I took some white 0.951 from Vallejo, and this is going to be just to paint these lines here on the shin guard, and so I'm just taking my time and I'm moving the model so it makes it nice and easy for me, and then my arms are like braced on the table, so I've got lots of control. Then I took some contrast Volupus pink. This is one of my favourite colours, a great colour this. I'm just going over the section of the weapon that I want to be this colour. So rather than going red with my Space Wolves, I've gone for this kind of deep, rich pink colour, and there's a layer version or a base version called Screamer Pink, so we'll use that next, and that's going to go on the shin guard on half of it. And now the way this is put together, there's little grooves there between the colours, so you've got plenty of space to work with so you don't overlap them, but you still have to be quite careful. So I've gone for a finer brush here, and I'm really taking my time. This is probably the most detailed part of this model really, to get this little bit on. Then on the other side, I took some Abbadon black, another base paint, and I'm going to do the same over there. Just move that model again so that I've got nice and control, I'm nice and relaxed, and I can get these detail pieces done, no problem. But just taking my time and just filling in those lines, getting as close as I can to the groove without going in the groove, and then that's going to get a nice crisp finish. It's back to some Agrax Earthshade now, and I'm going to use this just to give a bit more depth to this part of the model. So we're going over that wolf fur. You don't have to do this, but I just found for the time it takes, it's worth it to do this little touch. And then I'm going all over the gold areas just to make them a little bit richer, a bit deeper, bring out the texture a bit more, and to fill in those recesses with a bit of shade all over the weapon as well. And don't worry if a little bit goes over that pink, it doesn't matter. And then picking out all the areas that painted earlier with that bone colour, going over all the little pipes as well of metal. So this is quite a big stage, so I grabbed a larger brush here so I could get lots done, picking out all these metal sections of the legs as well. And this is just going to bring out, again, the texture of the model and really bring it to life. Then I took some Blood for the Blood God, a technical paint. It's a glossy paint, and I'm using this on all the jewels in the army. They're going with all going to have the same red colour, so put a little bit on that. Then back to that white from Vallejo, and now I watered this down, almost 1 part paint to 1 part water, and I'm going to go over all the areas of the weapon that I want to have this frost effect. And so this is going to be for his claw here, so just picking it all out, giving it a nice coat, and then when it dries you're going to see a little bit of that blue-grey coming through, and that's going to add to the effect of like the ice frozen effect. And once it's dried, I take a mix of 3 parts contrast medium to 1 part Aethermatic blue, and I give that 1 coat all over the areas that I painted white. And I also did a little bit on the base as well, what we painted earlier, so that's going to tie into the base when we make it later on. So 1 nice even coat, and then let that completely dry, and then did the same thing on the weapon. So any plasma weapons, they're going to get this effect too. And so this one, quite a lot of surface area here because you've got all the grooves, so just work it in, and also on this weapon here. And this technique I've used on all the different weapons throughout the whole army. Then when it dried, I took a 3 part contrast medium to 1 part Talasar blue, and then I'm just going to dot it around. I'm not going to give it 1 even coat here, just going to dot it around, and then all this is going to be each layer, you're going to see through it a little bit, and that's going to give the idea of a frozen, icy look. And then when we dry brush this later on, all these colours are really going to come through. Same here, just dotted around. I try and go around just the edge here with this darker blue, and then I'm almost trying to get it to go lighter as I get into the centre. But here I'm filling in those rune stones with it, so they'll stand out a little bit. Then it's back to the white again, the 9.51, and I do a dry brush now, and I use a very vegan makeup brush, super soft bristles, load it up with some paint there, work that in on some kitchen towel, and then just try and get most of the paint off on the towel. I just test it on my hand. You can see I'm getting covered in paint now as I go through this. So I'm putting quite a bit of paint on when I'm dry brushing this part, because that's really going to dull it down and make it look like a snowy, icy base. And then once I'm happy with how much paint's coming off and there's not so much paint on the brush, then I start going over the whole model. And I'm trying to go against the edges, a bit too much there, but it doesn't matter. And then I just go over the edges, trying to get them to catch some of that white paint. And then this is going to give an idea that it's a bit snowy, bit frosty. And this is, again, I've done it on the whole army, so it ties all the army together, really going heavy into this theme. And so here, not so much paint on the brush now, it's getting a little bit less paint. So I start moving up to the bigger parts of the model, work my way along those lines and try and get a real nice highlighted edge. And so this is a really great way to cover up any mistakes too. Once you put this on, it's going to hide anywhere where things overlap. And so going over this wolf that looks a lot like a mammoth, as you can see here, this weird looking thing, and then giving that a nice coat. So a lot of frost would build up on that fur. So I'm just trying to represent that here. And I thought I'd just let this bit go just so you can see just how much dry brushing I'm doing here. So it's quite a lot, quite a lot of the model to cover. So really just take your time. You might need to do a couple of passes. I'm going back to the paint as well, and then going over that kitchen towel to work the paint off, and then going through a few stages of this until I'm happy. I mean, it'd be really easy to overdo this, I think, so just got to know when to stop. But on these little frosted parts, you can be a bit more heavy-handed, get a bit more white on there, and I try and get it to be a little bit whiter on the tips, and then a bit bluer as it goes more towards the actual Dreadnought's hand. So you can see there it's starting to fade down a little bit, and so just keep going until you're happy, and again just over the top. But this will dry so fast as well, so you pretty much, once you put it on, that's how it's going to look almost. So just give it a nice coat and then we're ready to go. And here he is, BJORN the Fellhanded, painted to a tabletop ready standard with some nice quick and easy techniques. And you can see it's just building up single layers with a little bit of shade and then some dry brushing, and I'm really happy with the results. That white dry brush gives a really frosty effect, ties it into the base, and I think for the time put in, I think you can get some nice results using these techniques. I really like the frosted weapons. I think this is a real good signature thing for the Space Wolves army, and seeing it throughout all the different models works really nicely. But having all these different weapon options for BJORN is really fun, and you can make full use of his data sheet too. Here you can see I've used the same techniques to paint all 3 Dreadnought options from this set, and I'll do a separate video for Murder Fang. He's such a cool model, he definitely deserves a painting video of his own, but you could use all the techniques on this video to paint all these 3 different Dreadnoughts and their weapons. If you like the look of these icy frozen bases, then I've done a separate video showing you how to make those. Again, really quick and easy, just a couple of techniques, a few stages, and you get some real effective looking bases. And I'll put a link to that at the end of this video. I love this Space Wolves Dreadnought box set, and there's so many great parts in there, and you can build one model from it and choose from any of the 3 that you saw painted up earlier. And I'll put some links in the description below which you can follow to get up to 20% off for Element Games and Wayland Games, and that makes it really affordable. I mean, here it's $27.83. I think it's well worth it for what you get in the box. And it's an affiliate link, so you're also supporting the channel as I get a small commission for any sales made through that link too. So thanks so much if you choose to have a look. I really appreciate it. These wolves are part of my Space Wolves 3,000 point army that I built and painted in just 30 days. And I did a behind the scenes diary of how I did this, going through every stage from planning, building, painting, going some deep dives into the different models and what they could do. And I even built a large base, the FANG, for them all to be displayed in. I'll put a link at the end of this video to part 1 so you can watch that series if that's something you're interested in. I hope you enjoyed the video and I hope you found it helpful. I really enjoyed painting this model. I think it's an awesome character and I can't wait to play it on the tabletop. But for now, thanks so much for watching. Please like if you like it, subscribe for more videos like this, and don't forget to hit that notification bell to join me next time on Tabletop Skirmish Games. I'd like to say a huge thank you to my Patreon supporters who make these daily videos possible, and if you're interested in joining the community, it'd be awesome to see you there, and I'll put a link for that in the description down below.